Hi, and welcome to Ivy English. I'm Angela.
And I'm Wesley.
Today is May 27th. We're on page 73 of the magazine, and today and tomorrow, we're going to talk about a brief history of timepieces.
这是我们英文的标题啊，那中文的标题呢是琳琅满目各种奇妙的计时工具。
So, gentlemen, check your watches.
看看你的手表。
Let's see how long it takes us. Let's read the article first. Time is an essential element of our lives. English is full of expressions describing the passage of time. There's an expression, beat the clock, which means to finish a task quickly in order to meet a deadline. But time has been a concern since long before modern clocks were invented. Let's look at some of the inventive ways humans have measured time over millennia. Using the sun. The earliest methods of timekeeping utilized Mother Nature, the position of celestial bodies, particularly the moon and the sun. More than 5,000 years ago, the ancient Egyptians used obelisks, tall, narrow structures with 4 sides, to measure time in a simple but effective way. Depending on the size and angle of the shadows cast by the obelisks, the Egyptians could get a vague sense of what time of day it was. Later, sundials featuring a flat plate with lines on it and a triangular blade in the middle were invented. As the sun traversed the sky, the position of the blade's shadow would align with different markings on the sundial. Water clocks. A disadvantage of sundials was that they could only be used during daylight hours. To allow for the measurement of time at all times of the day, water clocks were created. These used either an inflow or outflow method. With the inflow technique, water would flow into a container with markings on the inside of it. The outflow method incorporated the opposite idea. As water flowed out of a container, more markings would be revealed. The oldest water clock is said to date back to about 1500 BCE and was found in a pharaoh's tomb. The above apparatuses are just a few examples of ancient timepieces. Others include clocks that used burning candles or incense, and those that told time through the dropping of sand in an hourglass. Our article ends here today, but of course the rest of the article goes on, and we'll get to that tomorrow.
好，那我们今天这篇文章呢只有一半哈，明天我们会有下半部的文章。
So let's get back to the beginning of the article, and it starts by saying, time is an essential element of our lives. It's nice that essential and element both start with the same sound, so that sounds cool. We always strive for alliteration in our English sentences.
Yeah, 好，所以这个押头韵哈 essential element 开头都是 a 啊这样的一个母音。
And it's just a fancy way of saying that we need time.
Yeah, 那基本上的意思就是我们需要有时间这个东西啊。那这个英文的句子呢，它说时间是一个 essential， 就是indispensable 啊，非常不可或缺的哈 ，vitally important 叫做 essential。所以时间是一个非常重要的、不可或缺的一个 element of our lives， 是我们生命活啊里面一个不可或缺的元素，尤其对现代人来讲。
English is full of expressions describing the passage of time. But also English is just obsessed with time as a language in general. Like, my favorite thing to tell students is that there's 2 super important things that are in English that are not in Chinese. One is time, and the other is number. We always got to know how many things we're talking about, and we always got to know when it happened, before or after, in the past or present or future. You got to know these things to construct the most basic of English sentences.
Yeah, 好，这个是非常正确的。好，就英文跟中文有一个可能最大的不同，就是英文对于时间跟数量是非常非常看重的。好，所以任何一个英文句子呢，只要是动词，它一定牵涉到时间的问题。好，你要用什么样的时态，现在还是过去还是未来啊，虚拟还是真实。那只要牵涉到名词，就一定牵涉到数量的问题，要不要加 s， 要不要有冠词。那这个是英文跟中文最大的区别。
Yeah, and if you create an English sentence without using these things, your listener is going to be like, wait, what? How many cats are we talking about? Or wait, what? Did it happen now? Was it before? Like, is this complete? Or is it still ongoing?
Yeah, 所以如果你任何一个英文句子，你如果没有注意到 time 跟 number 的话呢，听的人 就会被你搞糊涂了，他会不知道你到底在讲什么东西。好，所以我们来回来看看这个句子。他说英文呢 is full of 充满了 expressions 一些说法表达方法describing 这些 expressions 是要 describe 要描述 the passage of time。 好， the passage of time 是常常看到的一个 collocation， 就是时间的流逝或者时间的消逝。这个 passage 在这里呢是流失的过程。the process of elapsing 这个字很好， elapse指时间的时候，它是指消逝的意思。那 elapse 是 E-L-A-P-S 那我们刚刚是 elapsing 再加个 ing elapsing 那所以这个 the process of elapsing 就是时间的消逝，跟 the passage of time 意思一样。
So there's an expression in English, beat the clock, which is not where you take a clock and you destroy it by hitting it, which is what most of us want to do when we wake up in the morning. Although then you'd be short your cell phone, which you kind of really need. But this is not the meaning of this. If you beat the clock, it means you win. You get faster than the clock, because this is a problem actually between English and Chinese. If you say I won something, it means that you received something as a prize. So if I and Wesley were in a competition and I was the one who won, I can't say to Wesley, I won you, because that would mean Wesley was my prize. Which wouldn't be bad, but that's not my point. I would have to say, I beat you. That means that I was the one that won. So you beat the clock. It means, in this case, you won the race. You finished a task quickly in order to meet a deadline, and you won. You got the task done before the deadline came. So you were faster than the clock, so you beat the clock.
好，所以呢这个地方他讲到说有一个 expression 有一个说法叫 beat the clock。 这个 beat 在这里不是打的意思，这个 beat 带的是 win 的意思。你赢了，你在跟时间赛跑跟钟赛跑的时候呢，你赢了这个赛跑。那刚刚 Angela 还是提到一个这个 win 跟 won 它的用法很大家要注意的，就是通常来讲你说 you won something 这个用过去式，这个时候意思就是你已经赢得了某个东西。所以这个 something 是你得到的东西，你赢了然后你得到了这个东西。所以要小心你不要讲说这个我赢了谁，中文可以说我赢了他，但是英文你如果说 I won someone 的感觉起来 someone 是你赢得的战利品，那就不对了所以这是要讲 I beat somebody 那这是 won 的过去时常用。那如果是你说我吵架的时候吵输了，好你赢了，你赢了，这个时候 you win 你通常不会说 you won 是吧？所以 you win 是用在现在式，就是好算你赢了，这个时候是用现在式 you win。所以这个地方讲到说 beat the clock， 那 which 就指这个 expression 它的意思就是 finish a task， 完成了一个任务task 就是分派的工作，你完成了一个任务是 quickly 很快的完成了，目的是 in order to 要 meet a deadline， 你赶上一个时限换句话说 beat the clock 就是你要赶上时限，赶上一个期限，你尽快的完成了一个，就或者你很快的完成了一个任务，在时限之内完成了这个任务。
But time has been a concern. Aside from the fun of English, time has been a concern since long before modern clocks were invented. I think we're way more obsessed with time in this era, but people have always kind of struggled to coordinate activities, which means you kind of all have to have the same concept of what time it is.
所以时间很重要，因为尤其是在一个群体里面呢，大家要有同样的时间事情才能够做得好。所以他说 time has been a concern 就是一个关心的事，或者是关注的关切的事concern 就是 a matter that engages a person's attention 或者 a person's interest 或者是 care 等等的所以这是 concern， 所以它可以数的。所以时间一直是一个大家所关心的事情。从什么时候开始就是呢 since long before在 modern clocks 发明之前，很久很久之前，时间就是大家所关注的事情了。换句话说，现代的钟表发明的当然比较晚，但是在这个之前呢，人类其实对时间来讲呢，人类对于时间一直觉得非常看重，这是他们所关心的事情。
So let's look at some of the inventive ways humans have measured time over millennia. Inventive means creative or finding new ways to do something, and millennia means thousands of years.
所以呢，我们来看一看some of the 就是其中的一些，什么东西其中一些呢 ？Inventive ways， inventive 就是有创意的、创新的一些方法这个 in which humans have measured time， 人类用来 测量或者是量度这个时间的方式啊，也就是人类用来量度时间的一些很有创意的方式。那 over millennia 就是数千年来，这个 over 是 through the period or duration of 的意思，就是在这一段整段时间，所以在数千年以来，人类用来量度时间的一些 inventive ways， 一些有创意的方式。
So the first way we're going to discuss is using the sun. Since the sun comes up, crosses the sky, and goes down in a regular pattern, that's one of the easiest ways to keep track of time. Even in the modern world, people will look out inside and go, oh, wow, it's getting late. The sun has turned orange, or the sun is going down.
好，所以呢，第一个 using the sun 就是利用太阳啊，因为其实这个现在还是有的人有时候还是会看太阳，然后就大概知道说天色已晚了
Yeah.So the earliest methods of timekeeping utilized or used Mother Nature. Can I just say utilized is like a fake word? Just say used, okay? Sorry, I have a real problem with utilized. I mean, if you really, really want to use utilize, fine. It's just like you're just trying to be fancy. Just say used. It's fine. Anyway, so the earliest methods of timekeeping used Mother Nature.The position of celestial bodies, meaning the planets and stars and sun in the sky, and particularly the moon and the sun, since they are the most obvious and easy to see.
好，所以 the earliest methods 就最早的方法啊，什么的方法呢 ？Methods of timekeeping 计时啊，所以计时最早的方法用的是什么呢 ？Utilized 这个字就是 use 的意思啊，所以大部分的时候其实各位不需要用到 utilize 这个字啊。那你如果说你真的要用 utilize 的话呢 ，utilize 你可以说它比较强调哈 ，utilize 它强调是你要 make profitable 或者是 effective use of something.
Yes, that is the point at which you use utilized.
Yeah, 所以当你要用 utilize 的时候，你要记得 utilize 它的意思就是 to put to use, especially to make profitable or effective use of something. 你要这个用这个东西通常是因为你可以得到某些好处，或者是你需要很有效的运用某样东西，这个时候才会用 utilize。所以 utilize 跟 use 呢，你真的要分的话呢，你可以说 utilize 比较偏向所谓的利用啊，有一个利在那边。那 use 比较像中文这样，我们讲使用。那就像中文一样，大部分我们讲使用就好，你不一定要到利用。
Yeah, but so based on that definition, utilized is appropriate for this sentence because we're using Mother Nature as a tool.Yeah,
好，所以从这个角度来看的话，在这里用 utilize 这个字呢，其实它有它的道理，因为好像是我们利用这个 Mother Nature 那我们可以从中获益，或者是从中可以做一些 effective use of Mother Nature。Another
good word here, by the way, is particularly. You can say especially, you can say in particular, or you can say particularly to point out a specific example.Yeah,
好，那这个 particularly 就是尤其是你可以换成 in particular 或者有的时候你可以 specifically 也可以就是特别是。好，所以这个地方讲到说我们用 Mother Nature， 那怎么样用呢？就是这个position 是位置，好，那 celestial bodies 就是天体celestial 就是天空的 of the skies， 所以我们特别讲到我们利用大自然，特别是利用天体的一些位置。那天体尤其是什么呢？尤其是月亮跟太阳。
And celestial bodies is like a more romantic way of saying it.
好，那 celestial bodies 就是比较 romantic 的一种说法其实就是指天上的这个星星月亮、太阳等等的。
So, more than 5,000 years ago, the ancient Egyptians used obelisks. These are tall, narrow structures with 4 sides. Think the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C. is a modern version of an obelisk.And they used these to measure time in a simple but effective way. They were often used as basically a timepiece for basically the whole city or everyone who was nearby the obelisk.
OK, 好，所以这地方讲到说，大概这个5000多年前，more than 5,000 years ago， 好，那古埃及人呢，他们用了 obelisk， 就是方尖石碑不一定是石头了，方尖碑或者方尖塔，它是方的，可是是尖塔或者像一个碑一样的东西。好，它这也告诉你说，后面同一个解释一下，所谓的 obelisks 就是高的，然后呢 narrow 狭窄的 structures 一些建构或者是结构体。那 with 4 sides 它有4个面。那古埃及人用这样的东西呢来 measure time 来 量度来测量时间。好，那而且是 in a simple 以一个什么方式，用 in 这个介系词以一个很简单但是是有效的方法就可以测量时间了。
Now, depending on the size and angle of the shadow cast by the obelisks, the Egyptians could get a vague sense of what time of day it was. It's a little more precise than a vague sense because they actually would make markings on the plaza around the obelisk, and so they would know how close they were to the middle of the day or towards sunset, for instance.
好，所以其实他们测量出来的没有说真的非常的 vague 是模糊的意思所以 depending on 根据这个大小还有角度of the shadows cast by the obelisks 所以由这个尖塔或者尖碑所这个投射出来的阴影cast 就是投射，它的受词是那个 shadows 它所投射出来的阴影的 size 大小还有它的 angle 角度靠这些东西呢，埃及人尤其是古埃及人呢，他们就可以得到一个 a vague sense of， 就他们可以有一个大概的概念，大概的这个idea sense 在这里其实就是 a mental realization 或者是一个 recognition 他们可以认出来，大概可以知道有一个 vague sense of something， 他们可以大概有一个概念，模糊的概念。什么东西模糊的概念呢？ What time of day it was， 就是这是一天里面的哪一个时间。他们看那个尖塔所投射出来的影子的大小跟角度。
Actually, about 2,000 years ago, somebody used 2 obelisks in 2 different cities to measure and prove the curvature of the earth, which is kind of amazing.
所以事实上他们在几千年前有人用2个不同城市的2个尖碑算出了这个地球的曲率所以这个曲是弯曲的曲那个率是比率的率算出了地球的曲率非常厉害。
Yeah.So, later on, sundials featuring a flat plate with lines on it and a triangular blade in the middle were invented, and probably as an idea of having sort of a portable obelisk.
好，所以 later 后来呢 sundials 就是我们讲日晷这个东西呢，然后呢后面他解释一下，同位一个解释一下 featuring 它主要的特色是一个 flat plate，一个扁平的 flat 是扁平的 plate 是板子一个扁平的板子 with lines on it 上面有一些线条，还有一个 triangular 一个三角形的 blade 就是一个轨针那个 blade 本来是刀刃那这个地方就是指那个日晷的轨针in the middle 中间有一个日晷的轨针有一个圆盘上面有一些线条，那这样的一个东西呢were invented 这个句子它原来结构其实很简单，就是 later sundials were invented 那中间插入的都是来解释什么叫做 sundials。
So as the sun traversed the sky, to traverse means to travel across. So as the sun moved across the sky, the position of the blade's shadow would match up with different markings on the sundial. So you would be like, oh, it's 3 o'clock because here we are at the 3 o'clock line.
好，所以呢这个 as 随着这个太阳 traverse the sky， traverse 就是 travel across 那它当太阳在这个天空里面因为太阳它会这个从东边上这个日出之后，它会一直从西边落下，所以好像是会走过这个天空这种感觉。那随着太阳变换它的位置，那这个 the blade's shadow 就是这个 blade 就是日晷这个轨针的影子，它的 position 它的位置呢会 align with 它可能是连成一线，那也可能是平行，也可能是对齐的意思那在这里呢你可以说它会这个对齐，会对到 different markings on the sundial， 它会对到这个日晷上面不同的标记那 align with 这个字其实蛮好用的，例如说像我们停车的时候你要停的跟那个人行道平行就对齐对正，那个你可以说 he aligned the car with the curb这停车的时候就我停的要对齐对正，那个也是 align。
You kind of don't have a choice, because if you don't, everyone around you will laugh at you.
Yeah,
Who parks a car like that?
Yeah, 如果车子停歪的话会被人家笑的。Yeah.
So the next thing that that we've used to measure time with is water clocks. And water clocks, the ones that we talk about here are just from the ancient time, like from the Egyptian times. But actually, water clocks have been used like pretty often by the rich people in Europe over time, and there's a lot of really cool examples of water clocks. You should Google it.
Yeah, 所以 water clock 就是水钟 yeah.
So a disadvantage of sundials was that they could only be used during daylight hours, and also cloudy days also made them hard to read.
Yeah, 好，所以呢disadvantage 就是缺点啊。这个 sundials 日晷的一个缺点就是他们只能在什么时候用呢？是在这个 during daylight hours， 就是带有日光的时候，也是白天才能用。而且如果是阴天的话呢，有的时候也读起来也是不太容易判读 yeah.
So to allow for the measurement of time at all times of the day without burning a candle or using up stuff, water clocks were created.
Allow for 就是让某件事情成为可能，也就是使某件事情可以进行。所以他为了要 allow for， 他为了要让底下这件事情可以做到，就是什么事情呢？就是 the measurement of time， 也就是说为了要让时间这个测量呢，可以是at all times of the day， 可以在一天的任何时间点都可以做啊，也就是简单的说，为了让这个在一天里面任何时候都可以测量时间。那这个 all times of the day， 这个 times 加了 s， 你可以把它想象成不同的时间点，不同每一天里面不同时间点，我们都要来测量时间。为了让这件事情成为可能呢，所以就创造了 water clocks。Now,
these clocks used either an inflow, water coming in, or outflow, water flowing out method.
那这些 these 就是指 water clocks， 他们用呢 either 要么就是 inflow 流入，要么就是 outflow 流出的方法。
So with the inflow technique, with using this particular way of doing it, water would flow into a container. So like water from a stream would come into a container in a controlled flow with markings on the inside of it. So as the container filled up, you would see the markings get covered.
好，所以是如果用的是流入的这个方法，这个技巧的话呢，水它会流入一个 container， 那当然它是会控制这个水的流速跟流量的，它会流到一个这个容器里面 container。那这 container 这个容器呢，它有什么特色呢？它是 container with markings on the inside of it， 它在内部 the inside 有一些 markings， 有一些标记。
And that works really well if you have a constant steady water source.
Yeah， 如果你的水源啊是这个很持续的，而且很稳定的话，那这个其实是很好的一个方法。
And the outflow method incorporated or brought in the opposite idea.
Incorporate 就是 to include as a part 啊 combine 啊或者是 merge， 所以
make it part of your body literally.
Yeah， 基本上就是怎么样让它成为你身体的一部分啊，所以那流出的这个方法呢，利用 incorporate 其实也可以翻成利用啊，或者是它融入了啊 the opposite idea 是相反的一个概念。
As water flowed out of a container, more markings would be revealed, so they would show more markings rather than cover up the markings.
Yeah， 那随着水流出这个容器，那水位越来越低嘛，所以有更多的标记会被显示出来，因为你水位越来越低。
Now, the oldest water clock is said to date back to about 1500 BCE, which is before the Common Era. It's also sometimes called BC, which is before Christ. And it was found in a pharaoh's tomb. So the oldest example that they can find of one of these was found in a pharaoh's grave.
Yeah, 所以最古老的水钟啊，据说回溯到 date back to 回溯到大概西元前1500年啊，它是在一个法老王的坟墓里面找到的。
The above apparatus is just another word for machines. So the above machines are just a few examples of ancient timepieces.
好 apparatus 就是我们通常翻成这个装置哈，一个 device， 一个 appliance for a particular purpose。所以以上讲的这些装置或者这些器械呢，只不过是古老的 ancient 啊，它的 timepieces 计时工具的一些例子而已 just a few examples.
You're right, device is a better word than machine. Machine implies a power source and ongoing motion, whereas a device is just a tool, a fancy tool.
machine 通常会牵涉到动力的问题哈，但是 device 不一定是有动力的哈，所以 apparatus 通常是跟 device 比较接近。
Yeah. So other timepieces include clocks that used burning candles or incense. You know, you just see how short the candle or incense is. And then there's those that told time, which tells you what time it is, through the dropping of sand in an hourglass. All of these methods that we've talked about today require some sort of human input, unless you had like an input from a stream for your water clock. But most of them require somebody paying attention and keeping the clock going, which is a little bit inconvenient. And if somebody forgets, then your clock is going to be out of tune or, inaccurate.
Yeah. 所以我们这样讲，以上讲这些，大家都需要有人在旁边盯着看或者照顾啊。那这里讲到说，前面讲的这些只是一些例子，那其他的例子包括什么呢？包括一些钟，它使用的是burning， 它会燃烧蜡烛或者是香，像中国就常常讲一炷香的时间、2炷香的时间，那就这种香来当计时工具。好，还有 and those 在这里指的是 clocks， 就是还有一些钟 those clocks that told time。told time 可以说是报时中文那个报数那个报时，它也可以说是计时，但是基本上它这个报时就看出时间，这些让你看出时间，怎么样看呢 ？through 经过the dropping of sand 就是让沙漏下来，也就是沙漏，所以沙漏的英文就是后面最后一个字 hourglass 就是沙漏所以靠沙漏它沙往下漏，那告诉你多少时间报时。
So that's all the time we have to talk to you about time. Couldn't resist that. But please come again tomorrow so we can finish the rest of our article in time. Until then, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.